Hey, everybody. I am Katrina from In Cat We Trust, and I am back with another interview with another absolutely fabulous guest. I have with me here Devlyn. So, how are you today?
I am good. I'm just prepping for Europe tomorrow, so stressed, but I'm good.
So, I guess because you mentioned it first, but we can jump into that first. What was the deciding factor as far as wanting to go to Europe? Because I know there's different styles of wrestling there, just like there's different styles in Japan than what we have here in America. So, what was the kind of deciding factor? You're like, you know what, I'm going to see what's out there in Europe.
So I grew up like watching wrestling from a very young age, and I always kind of liked like the style. Like William Regal was like one of my favorites growing up.
Yeah.
And I feel like there's such a distinct difference between like him and like, like John Cena or Randy Orton. So it was a lot more like aggressive. And I remember like the Cruiserweight Classic happened like a little bit ago, and there was some British wrestlers and stuff in there. And two that really like kind of got my attention was Noam Dar and Zack Sabre Jr. And I was like, oh, like this is really cool. So I got really hooked to them, and then I started watching NXT UK like really heavily. Started watching the independent scene. And like no disrespect to like American wrestling, I just always am like, yo, that shit is cool over there.
Yeah.
So I've always gravitated to that. Like that's how like if I could pick like how I want to be like dream wrestler style, I'd want to wrestle like them.
Yeah, I definitely do like William Regal. I feel like I appreciated him a lot more as I got older, just because he has like a certain style of wrestling that just worked really well, especially when he did his heel characters. That it just worked really, really, really well. So, what initially got you into wanting to be a wrestler?
So when I was like 6, I had two stepbrothers, and they, like any 6-year-old boys, they loved wrestling.
Yeah.
And they had like SmackDown versus Raw 2007 for the PlayStation 2. And that was like, we all had to share the TV, and like they pretty much dominated it all the time with that game. And I was very, very like resentful towards wrestling for the longest time. I was like, yo, like, F these guys, like, this is so stupid. And then I saw that they had women's wrestlers, and particularly Kelly Kelly. I was like, what? Like, she looks like one of the Barbie dolls I have. Like, this is so cool. So I got really into it from there. And then when I was like 7 years old, I remember like in school, like if you asked me, if a stranger asked me, like, what do you want to be when you grow up? I'm like, I want to be a WWE diva. So that was like my answer since I was like 7. So it's just always kind of stuck. Excuse me. It's always stuck with me.
Okay. And I know you trained with Devon Dudley and some other fantastic wrestlers. So how was that experience, I guess, kind of getting in the mindset to have to train? Because I know training, I mean, I don't wrestle, so I know training is probably a lot different than, people think it is as far as getting yourself into in-ring shape and, practicing what you're good at in the ring. And so how was that experience for you?
It was tough. So I know I've talked to other people who have gone to different wrestling schools, and Devon's was like the one. It felt like I was in military like boot camp, in the best way possible. It got my ass in shape. Like I remember having my first match and first several matches, and I was just I didn't get tired. Like it was just like second nature to me. Devon's is very like teaches you the basics. It teaches you everything you need to know fundamentally. And also it gets you in cardio shape. Like before we were even able to step into the ring, we had to do like 10-15 minutes of like, they call them MEs. And it's kind of like cross, like very high intense,
Yeah.
and get your heart going. And then you get into the ring right after doing that, and you have to run a spot. And if you mess the spot up, you have to do it again until you get it right. And you have to be like completely gassed, like gasping for air, and do this and make it look good and make it look flawless. And rarely heard of other schools doing training like that. So like I've always been like, Devon's is one of those like really tough schools to go through. And I feel like people who come out of there, they're like badasses almost, because it's like you go through this intense training. I know a lot of other schools are like 12-week programs, which teaches you kind of do it, the athletic and the cardio part outside of there. But Devon's like, we had a conditioning coach. He would write you workouts, meal plans, whatever you need to know. And he's an old guy, but like he got the Hulk Hogan in shape for wrestling, and he's like does a lot of things like that. So it was a legit like school. It wasn't for the weak minded for sure.
Okay. So what was some advice you've got while you was training in that school that you kind of hold still dear to you from when you like left training?
Um, Honestly, Devon would always kind of just like tell little stories from personal experience. I always like the biggest thing he would say is you do not know like you may not like somebody or you may think someone's below you. I've never been the type to think anyone's below me, but it's very common in wrestling. Um, so you may think someone's like below you or not worth your time, but you never know where that person will be. That person can be your boss one day. So he's like, treat everybody with respect, like be nice, try to avoid having any issues with people. Just kind of stay out of the drama, stay out of all that. And I think like wrestling, a lot of wrestlers get caught up with the fact that like this is, storyline, you have to be an actor, but a lot of wrestlers get themselves involved with a lot of drama. You see it on Twitter like every day. If I have like I feel like it's just I don't know, like if you have an issue with someone, it should be addressed in a private manner rather than like on Twitter or Facebook or whatever. Of course, if you're trying to build a storyline or a feud, it's a lot different. But if you have an issue with someone legitimately, it's not something that should be public. A lot of wrestlers, especially now with the social media age, do that, and it's quite dumb in my opinion. So Devon was always just like, be very careful like what you put on the internet, because like it's digital footprint. Like everything will come back on you. Just treat everybody with respect. You don't know who's going to be your boss one day. So I've gotten from him some of the best advice.
I mean, I think it's really solid advice. I do think social media is like a gift and a curse. Like it's good because I've gotten to see a lot of wrestlers that like that's how I discovered quite a few wrestlers actually through social media. And then I'm like, oh, okay, let me kind of check this person's stuff out and see what's going on. But then it's also the whole like people get really weird about like how they are behind the keyboard or behind the phone, and it's I don't know, it is definitely can be very toxic. So I definitely
Yeah.
agree with that. It's unfortunately can be very very toxic. And so I mentioned to you before we started about you fighting or rather wrestling Marina, who I wind up being introduced off of WoW wrestling. And so who are some of your favorite opponents you've gotten to face in the ring so far?
I've wrestled Kelsey like more times than I can count on my hand. But I've always enjoyed wrestling her. Kaya Dream is also, and I haven't had many matches with her, but her and I have like always been super close, and her and I have very intense, like great matches. I recently wrestled Sue Young. That's probably got to be my favorite match I've ever had. It was so fun. And wrestling like a childhood idol of yours is like always super surreal. Marina was super fun too. I think that was back when I was like brand stinking new. And she really like helped me get through it. She was very like, courteous, nice, respectful. I always enjoy like wrestling people with good attitudes, like when they bring good energy. I wrestled Notorious Mimi here like I think last week. She was also someone I've never really like formally met her, and I had a match. She's also the first ginger I've ever wrestled, so it was a lot of fun. And she's super positive, super lovely. So like just like those got to be like they got to be my favorites so far. But I've had a lot of great matches with a lot of great people. It's always just refreshing when people just come in with ideas and their energy's really good, because at the end of the day you got to trust these people with your life. So if they're coming in there with some bad energy, it's kind of like what did I get myself into?
Yeah. So you mentioned Sue Young, and I did see some clips of that match of you and her. And so, how was that experience in regards to like, did she give you any advice before or afterwards? Because I did see it, you guys kind of went all around that arena, and I loved it. I was like, yes, love seeing women being able to kind of just be badass like that. But did she give you any advice like before or afterwards after that matchup?
Yeah, so Sue I've met multiple times prior to this match, and it was really interesting because that Friday, the match was on a Sunday. That Friday, that's when they asked, the promoter was like, "Hey, can you work the show? Can you do the show?" So super last minute, and I've met her multiple times. She's the nicest person you will meet. One of the nicest vets I've ever met in this business, and she really is like the mom of the locker room. And she takes care of everybody. So I've had like a good relationship with her prior to that, and I've even reached out to her for like character stuff, and like different like advice and things like that. But when I got to wrestle her, like we actually got to be in the ring together. Afterwards, I'm very, very overcritical of myself. I am always super hard on myself. Have very high expectations for myself. And, it's kind of like, I guess when you get in the ring with me, you can kind of see that. So I think she saw that. And, she was like, "You're doing good, kid." Like she gave me, some good advice going on with my career, and, just told me to just enjoy the ride and not be super stressed about it. So it's always refreshing to hear that from people.
Okay, I like that. And I know you also had a dark match, I believe, with Emi Sakura at
Yes.
AEW, which I actually got to see as well, which was fantastic. And so how was that experience, I guess, working in AEW? I know their system's a little different than like if you go to like some indie shows or indie promotions, and then obviously a lot different than WWE as well. And so how was that experience for you, I guess? And was there any major difference between the other promotions you may have worked?
Yes. So Emmy, I actually had the pleasure to train with her at Jay Lethal's school a couple times. So I was also going in there familiar with her, like we've talked before. So I remember I'm not a big like I believe in manifestation, but I'm not really like crazy about it. I do believe you when you put out in the universe, though, will come back to you. And I remember the way AEW Dark. I hope I don't get in trouble for saying any of this, but the way it works is there's two tapings on one day, and there's like four shows in the two tapings. So there's two shows per taping. It's super confusing. I was like, what is going on? But the first show, guys that are like signed in there and like get them in and out so they can have the rest of the day. So they very rarely will use like the extras, or like most of the extras. And this was my first time there, so I wasn't really expecting to get a match. I was just kind of, excited to be there, happy to be there. But I saw Emmy come in, and it was around like 4, and I was like, "Oh, like Emmy, like how are you, whatever." And there's something in my head was like, "Oh, what if you get a match for everybody that's here? Like, what if?" And then they were on the floor, and I saw Emmy Sakura versus Devlyn Macabre. So she was like, "Oh, it's me and you," and we went out there. We did the thing. Was very like super sweet. Gave me some good advice. And I always I loved working her. I would love to work her in a longer match. That's the one thing like. I wouldn't say I don't like about AEW, but it's just like you kind of just get like a few minutes. And I would love to work her in like a longer match
Yeah.
because she's super good. She's like a true definition of a vet in this business as well. Very humble, very nice. Like you can talk to her, and even with Diamante, it was very similar. Like I trained with her a couple times out at Jay's, and she was very nice and respectful about it. So AEW was super cool because I also never really worked for like big promotions. I'm still like trying to scratch at that, but I think the biggest promotion like production wise I worked at was Shine. Like we streamed live, and we had like a bunch of roaming cams, and we had a hard cam, and like you have to learn about the camera stuff. Thankfully with Devon's, it's Devon. Well, he was formerly a WWE coach, and he also a producer, and he also was in WWE for such a long time. So one of the big things we learned there was working the hard cam, working the crowd, selling to different cameras, like angles, moments, like facials. So going into AEW, I was heavy, like that was like implanted into my head because it was like, this is high production value. And these cameras are like 4K. versus like I can't tell you how many indie shows I've wrestled where they're filming on a phone and you don't really get like those good camera quality moments, like those intense moments you want to have, the stare downs and etc. So yeah, like that was super fun to do that with AEW because it was such high production. You get to learn how like this and this works and how they set the ring up and how they have the lights flash and everything. Is a really cool experience.
That's great. Yeah, I've definitely seen the camera situation at some indie shows. And I'm like, I get it, but then also like, no, maybe buy like a camcorder or something. It's a little better than a phone. I mean, well, some phones, but you know what I mean. I totally understand that. So I'm a firm believer in always kind of having some time to kind of just decompress, just because again, life can be crazy. Everything's been kind of insane the last couple of years with like COVID and everything. But also, again, social media can also be very toxic. And so, what are some things that you like to do to kind of just recharge your battery and decompress?
Honestly, I love doing CrossFit. CrossFit's always been kind of like this therapy for me. I also go to therapy. I think like that's super important, especially like if you're in such a high stressful like life, I guess you could say. And then I just like to like hang out at home, like be in bed, watch movies, play video games, like just that's like my perfect, like just I don't do anything. Like I don't whatever. TikTok. I don't really have like a set routine. I just kind of like do whatever, like hang out with friends, stuff like that. Training's always good, like little therapy for me as well.
Definitely agree with the therapy part. I also go to therapy, like very similar. Just like I'm a firm supporter of people if they can get to a therapist, definitely do it.
Yeah,
So it's so
100%.
helpful, so helpful. Just
And
with
there's so many like different ways. Like I do BetterHelp, and I used to go to therapy when I was younger, very like intensely because I struggled with PTSD and depression and all types of stuff. So that same therapist I had, a few years later, I actually got linked up with her on BetterHelp. It's this app, and I'm not sponsored. I'm not out here like, oh, yeah, but it is such a good app. You can like literally talk to therapists, and for the most part, it's very cheap. I know if you use like the promo code Hurricane Ian, you get like 3 months for free. Once again, I am not sponsored. I just got the hookups, guys. So, if you're watching, you need some therapy, Hurricane Ian, boom, 3 months free of therapy. So you're and yeah, like I think it's very important to go to therapy, even if you don't like struggle with anything. Like it's still like every now and then, just it's good to talk to somebody. Like, am I overreacting to this situation? Am I, like doing something wrong? It's nothing. There's nothing wrong with that.
That's actually very refreshing because I'm with my kids. I kind of did the same. I just put them in, and my reasoning was mostly just like, if you can't come to me, and I want you to come to me, but if you feel like you truly cannot, well, there's somebody he kind of bounce things off of if you need to have that extra outlet. And so that's very refreshing to hear. I don't always hear that too often about like the therapy part, as far as just it doesn't always have to be like dire situations to be in therapy. And so
I feel like everybody needs to go to therapy like every now and then, because like people like everyone has emotions. Like, so some days you're going to have really like intense emotions and like you don't know how to handle it. That's when therapy's good. Like now you learn how to handle stuff like that. So my emotions are always intense just because of like how my brain has developed since my childhood. So it's like I have to kind of like, I go like once a week and I have to just kind of like develop these different like mechanisms and stuff to like live day-to-day life. And I'm not, I try not to do any medication or anything like that, because I don't really like putting stuff like that in my body, because I don't want to like change my personality or anything. So I just try to develop natural ways of coping with certain things. Like journaling's great. I personally like CrossFit's like a good way to blow off steam, good way to stay in shape, good way to get that ring cardio going. So I just it's different for everybody.
Yes, I love that. That's definitely something. Thank you for sharing that, by the way. So after Europe, what are your plans for one? I know you're supposed to be there every 3 months, I believe. Right.
So I'm actually, because visas, like there are those, I've never been out of the country. I literally just got my passport like 2 months ago.
Yeah.
So I am very like, what is going on? So I thought you just kind of walk over there and just do whatever you want. But in the UK, especially, they're a little strict, like with visas. So I have to put that on hold, unfortunately, till September and October, so I can wrestle over there, and I'm getting a sponsorship, so I can be over there legally and make money legally. So that's that. But it's my plan after Europe is Japan. Some way, somehow, I'm gonna get my little ass over to Japan and try to. I am super big on like iron sharpens iron. You got to get out there. You can't stay in one area and expect to get better. I've had a lot of people be like, "Oh, well, you're going to Europe, like whatever, whatever." It's like, yeah, on my own dime. Like, I'm trying to get better. Like, if you're okay with staying where you are, then don't complain that you're not getting better, because you have to get out there and explore and wrestle other people from other, countries and different types of wrestling culture styles and what have you, to get better. So
I love that. Yeah, there's so many fantastic women in Japan as well that you wrestle. Is there anybody who like you would really love to once you get there? As I feel like you will. I feel like that's just something you feel. It seems real determined that you're going to get there. And so, is there somebody you would love to have like a dream match with in Japan?
So I'm probably gonna butcher her name, and it's such a simple name, but Julia. I would love to wrestle her. She's like amazing. I love watching her, especially like on a smaller level. Like, she's a smaller girl, and
Yeah.
she just be throwing people like it's nothing. I aspire to be built like her. I aspire to like wrestle like her. Like, I just want to wrestle her. Also, like, I mean, she's in WWE, but like Mako Satomura has always been like a huge like I've always wanted to wrestle her. So those would be my top two for sure.
Great choices. And I always mess up her name as well.
Yeah, it's like, I don't know. I overthink it. I'm like, is it Julia?
But
Is it
she
Julia?
is
Like, what is it?
absolutely fantastic. Like, I love watching her wrestle. It's like I have to stay up to watch because the time difference for me, at least, it's a little bit extra. But I'm like, just to kind of watch the ladies over there work. It's just like such a different style. Like, Asuka gives a little bit of it now, but it's like previously pre WWE, it's like, oh, you're just so fantastic. Like, everything you guys did over there in Japan is just so fantastic. So
Right, like, it's insane how good they are. But
so we're gonna do
what they put in the water.
right. So we're gonna do a quick little speed round. I'm gonna ask you a question and tell me the first thing that pops in your head.
Okay.
Last show you binge watched.
The Last of Us.
Oh, yes, such a great show.
I love I fell into the TikTok edit trap. I was like, ooh.
Like, he has quite a few good ones too. He really does. And I'm like, I feel like I liked him already, but this really cemented. I think that and The Mandalorian. I was like, you know what? I'm gonna have to just put you part of the fold.
Watch The Mandalorian. I've never watched Star Wars, so everyone's like, Pedro's in. I'm like, well, I guess I'm a Star Wars fan now. Like, I gotta watch it.
I mean, I've watched all the Star Wars, but I feel like I wasn't like hype. Like, it was like I liked Obi-Wan because I like Ewan McGregor. I'm a huge fan of him, so I watched it. But like, I'm just like, oh man, you're such everything is just you do everything so well. This like, now I have to watch everything you do.
Yeah, like, literally, you fall into the actor trap.
Last song you had on repeat.
I don't remember what it's called. It's like, I think it's Princess Diana by Nicki Minaj, and Ice Spice. I think that's her name.
And that's Nicki back there, right?
Yeah.
Yes. So you are a Barb.
I am a Barb. Yes. I am. Like, I don't know. I've like had an obsession with Nicki Minaj since I was like 8. When she like did Bedrock, my dad did not care what I like watched as a kid. So like the pink wig and everything, I was like, oh, yep, I want to be her when I grow up. Like, I love her. So I've always been a Barb. And she's also Sagittarius.
Yes. Oh, so are you a Sag too? Because
I am. So like, I love. You're a Sagittarius too?
Yes, I am. Oh, that's so cool. When's your birthday?
For like the people. But yes, I'm a Barb, 100%.
Yes. Oh, that's so dope. Yeah, I'm a November 23rd Sag, like beginning Sagittarius season.
Oh, I'm awesome. December 16th.
Okay.
So towards the end. But I'm
Sagittarius
like,
is
my
Sagittarius.
sun and my rising is Sag, and I'm a Virgo moon.
Oh man, I thought I was a double Sag. I thought it was Sun rising Sag and Moon Capricorn, but apparently it's Sagittarius Capricorn because my mom told me the wrong time, and I'm like, Mom,
Oh,
kind of
I'm a
having
double
ignored.
Sag, and I get a little fiery sometimes, and I'm like, oh, I need that Virgo to come in and like calm me down.
Definitely can be fiery as well, very passionate about things as a Sagittarius, but then I feel like for other people, I'm usually pretty calm, and I feel like that's what it is. I feel like it's more of a me, like a protective thing. I get fiery, like if I love somebody, I'm like, oh, I'm gonna protect you, bring you in, and
Yes.
so I get really protective, and it's like bad protective. Like I'm like, who did what? Like I will come in, no questions asked, just like I got you, and so I'm trying to get better at that. It's bad.
I know.
So, what is a snack you have to have no matter what?
Oh, geez. Lately I've been super obsessed with like Oreo cakesters. I don't even like Oreos, but they're so good. Like I don't know what it is in them. That and like dill pickle chips,
Okay,
but not
okay.
together.
If you could have a superpower, what would it be and why?
Probably to teleport. I would
Solid.
like. Yeah, I'm not trying to drive. Like, I mean, like you can sleep in and be like, okay, boom, done. I'm there.
Yes, okay. And if you were stuck on an island and can only be three things, what three things would that be and why?
Probably my PlayStation with a TV. That counts as one because I'll attach it. Probably my phone so I can like keep in contact with people, I guess. And then barbecue sauce.
Okay, interesting with barbecue sauce. I'm assuming you really like barbecue sauce in that regard.
Yeah,
Then.
I'm like a connoisseur. I try them all. So I'm like the barbecue sauce critic. I could really make money off that. Like I can critique barbecue sauce.
You listen. You always gotta have extra plan just in case. You never know. Just extra money,
That's
extra
my backup plan. Last thing doesn't work out. I'm gonna be the Gordon Ramsay of barbecue sauce. All right?
Listen, listen,
Like-
and you're a woman too, so it's like you have the extra bonus, you know. Just
I'll even put on the British accent. Like I'm gonna yell. What kind of barbecue sauce is this?
So my last question for you is, what do you see yourself in 5 years from now?
Hopefully signed. That's my goal, to be signed.
Is there like a specific company or just whatever? Or you can just
WWE.
Okay, all right.
Or main event WrestleMania one day. So
Oh, we gotta put that
manifest.
out there. Yes, put the manifestation out there. Put it out there. You never know. I feel like hopefully they're moving in a good. I mean, they've gotten better, but they've also been steps behind with women's wrestling. I do complain about that kind of often. Just like let them girls do what they do. But hopefully, you know, you can definitely be there. I definitely love to see women main eventing. We've gotten a little more recently in the last couple of years, but we can do better as far as women in WrestleMania. And so putting it out there, fingers crossed, we put it out there.
I would like to see the main event like night 2, because you know that's like the main event. That's like I feel like the women need a main event night 2 one time.
Definitely agree with you there.
So,
definitely feel like that's like
I love Roman, but he could go on night 1 every now and then. You know what I mean? Like put his ass on night 1.
So, okay, tell all the listeners where they can find you and what you got going on.
Well, I have Europe going on. I'll be in Germany and Amsterdam for a couple of months. So you guys, you know, my European fans, y'all can come out and see me. And then you can find me on Instagram at Devlyn Macabre. My Twitter is at It's Devlyn. And my Facebook is Devlyn Macabre. I usually don't accept friend requests because there's too many, and you can just follow me on there. And then I also have like an OnlyFans, but I don't be posting no booty pics, nothing like that. So don't get it twisted. But you can find my matches. A lot of my matches, unfortunately, don't ever hit YouTube. So that's where you can find them until I can publicly post them and get permission for that. But OnlyFans is onlyfans.com/Devlyn Macabre. I post pictures. I, do photo shoots, and I do the matches. I do blogs. I do vlogs. I talk to my fans on there. It's probably the only place where you're going to get a response out of me if you're a fan. Sorry. I just don't be responding to people. Nothing personal. But yeah, that's where you can. And I also have merch, but my merch site is going to be down until I come back. So when I'm back in July, Devlyn Macabre, Big Cartel. Link is in my bio. So yeah, that's where you can find me.
Awesome. Yes, fans can be really. I've seen some things. Fans can really be. Don't always respect the boundaries. So.
Oh, yeah, trust me. Like the OnlyFans, I guess when you say you have an OnlyFans, they assume you're on there like posting porn, and like they'll message me like really disgust, and I'm like, bro, I don't give up like an F if you unsubscribe. Like I don't need the $15 extra. Like you can like go F off. But they're like, well, you have an OnlyFans, so I expect what? Like this isn't Pornhub.com. Like this, you don't expect anything like that. I had a Patreon, and I like Patreon better because there's less of a stigma around it. But I had like a couple $100 in my Patreon. I didn't cash it out, and they deactivated my account randomly, and I never got that money. So I don't trust Patreon. So I went to OnlyFans, and that's why I have OnlyFans. My OnlyFans, I'd say, is like PG-13. So I don't really know if I want minors subscribing to that, but it's nothing like you're not going to get like, it's, you know what I mean? Like it ain't crazy on there. So I also like post workout videos too, and stuff like that. It's kind of like all like centered around when I was growing up. I always was like 1 week of like, oh, like what do wrestlers do like behind the scenes? So that's kind of what I'm offering on my OnlyFans.
Okay. Yes, fans. Boundaries, please. That's an excellent. Please, boundaries. But again, thank you so much, Devlyn, for coming on. I really, really appreciate you coming on right before you go to Europe. Again, I'm pretty recent as far as I just kind of discovered you last year. I feel it was last year when I was kind of first saw one of your matches, and I was like, oh, let me see what else I can find, because I always go down the rabbit hole when I find somebody new. But thank you so much for coming on. This is a super fun chat.
Yeah, thank you so much. Likewise.
And I will have all the links in the description. So definitely go support. And if you are in Europe, please go and check Devlyn out. Go to the matches, support the shows. We will be cheering her on over here in America. But again, until next time, guys, we'll see you later. Bye.
Bye, guys.